The physical production base of the working class is decaying, yet abstract paper wealth continues to scale into the trillions. We call this hyper-financialization. It occurs when financial operators hollow out real industries to chase borderless capital flows and paper derivatives. Eventually, those capital flows grow large enough to dictate political policy, overriding the needs of everyday citizens. We tend to view this corruption as a glitch in the machine. We elect representatives, and when their policies serve corporate special interests instead of the public, we assume the system has failed. The system is operating exactly as it was mathematically designed to. To understand why, we have to look back at the architects of the modern West. Enlightenment philosophers like John Locke and Adam Smith made a civilizational gamble. They theorized that raw human greed could be safely rebranded as rational economic ambition and used as an explosive engine for societal progress. For 500 years, that gamble delivered extraordinary technological dominance and material abundance. This diagram illustrates the fatal flaw in that design. Private capital generates rapid economic growth, but if a system does not intentionally suppress its merchant class, that capital scales endlessly until it swallows the political stick itself. The modern West has fallen into the oligarchy trap, a state where leaders govern to maximize private balance sheets rather than ensure collective survival. Ancient political architects identified this exact vulnerability millennia ago. This bust of Plato represents a historical consensus shared by ancient Greece and imperial China. Both societies realized that if human civilization is left to its default settings, economic greed will naturally conquer political power, turning leaders into predators. Their solution was epistocracy, rule by an educated, virtuous elite. They engineered a strict structural mechanism to stop oligarchic corruption by forcing an absolute separation between financial wealth and political authority. In the Republic, Plato required his ruling guardians to endure a grueling, decades-long educational filter. To ensure they prioritized the collective good, they were legally barred from owning private property or touching gold. Looking at this historical illustration of Qing dynasty officials, we see the real-world execution of this ideal. For over a millennium, China governed through the Shi class, scholar bureaucrats who earned authority not through family bloodlines, but by passing brutal imperial examinations based on the deep mastery of statecraft. The Confucian system secured this structure by placing the merchant class at the absolute bottom of the social hierarchy. The state allowed private wealth to exist, but legally and culturally blocked that money from buying political influence. Protecting a civilization required forcing the elite to make a permanent choice. You can chase wealth, or you can wield power. You can never do both. Why did Europe discard this structural safeguard and unshackle the merchant class? Europe's geography was highly fragmented, packing dozens of small competitive states tightly together. This friction created a Darwinian environment of permanent existential warfare. A state had to continuously innovate its military and economy, or risk being erased from the map entirely. Looking at this early financial contract, we see the West's institutional breakthrough: sovereign debt. This mechanism allowed private greed to fund state violence. The clustered signatures at the bottom represent private merchants pooling their capital. In exchange for their funding, the state granted them monopolies on violence, effectively creating heavily armed corporate state hybrids. This painting captures the resulting global war machine. Entities like the East India Companies treated colonization as a high-yield investment vehicle, extracting resources worldwide and violently hollowing out foreign competitors to maximize abstract capital returns. Western hegemony did not stem from the moral conscience of free markets and democracy. The West conquered the globe by optimizing its society for explosive, predatory expansion rather than internal stability. That predatory engine eventually ran out of external frontiers to plunder. Because an economy built on continuous debt requires constant outward expansion, the machine inevitably turned inward, extracting value from its own population through financialization. Inside this massive assembly hall, we see the ancient epistocratic model did not disappear. It is currently executed by the modern Communist Party of China. These candidates taking the National Civil Service examination represent a direct continuation of Plato's guardians and the historical Shi class. Entering the administrative elite requires passing hyper-competitive technocratic filters and proving management competence over decades. To prevent oligarchic capture, the modern Chinese state utilizes strict anti-corruption laws as a guardian leash. Billionaire merchants face severe judicial consequences if they attempt to use their wealth to behave like political actors. China is not running on an ideological whim. It is executing the oldest political consensus in human history to insulate national policy from the influence of private wealth. Governance requires a civilization to decide what it values most. This matrix maps the two models. The Western design uses human greed to maximize short-term dynamism, assuming markets fix any imbalances. On the right, the Platonic Chinese matrix prioritizes continuity. It steers civilization using a vetted intellectual elite, engineered to absorb global shocks. Ultimately, a civilization survives the oligarchy trap by engineering the link between wealth and power entirely out of existence. Stability is a product of structural design, not the moral conscience of the financial elite.